Welcome gentlemen, welcome to our new series of lecture in that of the CRISC, that is Certified Risk Information System Control, Part 3, Domain 1, right? In this we'll be discussing about the some IT related risk relatives to other major categories. It is a continuation of the Domain 1. So in this we'll be discussing about the first will be the enterprise risk and IT related risk. In this enterprise risk, under this category we have the strategic risk, environment risk, market risk, credit risk, operational risk, and compliance risk. Similarly, under IT related risk, it is IT benefit and value enablement risk, IT program and project delivery risk, IT operations and the service delivery risk, and at last, cyber information and the security risk. Let's discuss one by one. First, enterprise risk. Friends, enterprise risk management is a methodology, right, that look at the risk management strategically from the perspective of the entire firm or organization. It is a top-down strategy that aim to identify, assess, and prepare for potential losses, danger, hazard, and other potential for harm that may interfere with an organization's operation and objectives and or lead to losses. Friends, enterprise risk management is a tool that the management and the board can use to help manage the risk across the enterprises, including cyber risk. The Committee of Sponsoring Organization of the Tradeway Commission, that is COSO, ERM framework, that is Enterprise Risk Management Framework, and the International Standard Organization for Standardization, that is ISO 31000, are the two prominent framework for enterprise risk management. Both framework emphasizes that for effective enterprise risk management, an organization need to have the oversight from the senior management, organization structure to support the ERM, and qualified staff. Coming on to it, under this, the first category of the risk is the strategic risk. What is strategic risk? Is the changes in the customer preference or the stakeholder preference, changes in the senior management. Strategic risk is born at the higher level of the organization, including senior management, and involve the risk incurred by leading the business toward the opportunities and away from decisions that exceed the organization capacity for the risk appetite and tolerance. Coming to the next, that is environmental risk. As the name suggests, it is the pollution or the degradation of the protected area. Going further ahead, market risk, foreign currency rate, availability of commodities, and the raw materials, at last may be called as the interest rate. Market risk is the risk that arises from the movement in the stock prices, interest rate, exchange rate, and the commodity prices. Market risk is distinguished from the credit risk, which is the risk of the loss from the failure of counterparty to make a promise payment, and also from a number of those risks that organizations face, such as breakdown in their operational procedures. In overview, we can say that the market risk is the risk arising from the changes in the market to which an organization has exposure. Coming to the credit risk, the examples are callable loans, damage to the asset for which the organization carries insurance. Second last, operational risk under the enterprise risk. Operational risk is the employee error, fraud, theft. Operational risk can span several work units and relate to how the business conducts its function, as well as how the different work units interact with each other. And at last, under the enterprise risk, it is the compliance risk. Compliance risk, that is non-compliance or inaccurate documentation, right? Compliance risk is an organization's potential exposure to illegal penalties, financial forfeiture, and material loss resulting from its failure to act in accordance with the industry laws and regulation, internal policies, or prescribed best practices. Compliance risk is also known as integrity risk. Under the types of compliance risk, to understand better, we can take an example like the corrupt and illegal practices. Legal compliance ensures that the organization and its agent and employees are abiding by the laws and the regulation of the industry. Common compliance risks involve the illegal practices, including fraud, theft, and bribery, as discussed earlier. Moving further ahead, coming on to the IT-related risk. The first, under the IT-related risk, it is IT benefit / value enablement risk. In this, the project implemented do not create the expected value. Not all IT risks are negative. IT benefit / the value enablement risk are associated with the opportunities to use the technology to improve the efficiency or the effectiveness of business processes, or as an enabler for the new business's initiative. Associated with the missed opportunities to use technology to improve the efficiency or effectiveness of business processes, or as an enabler for new business initiatives. Moving further ahead, IT program and the project delivery risk. Projects are not executed in accordance with the plan. These IT risks are associated with the contribution of IT to new or improved business solution, usually in the form of project and program. Example of the risk are project quality, project relevance, and project overrun, associated with the contribution of the IT to new or improved business solutions, usually in the form of projects and program. Moving further ahead, IT operations and the service delivery risk. As the name suggests, in this the services provided do not meet the service level agreement. IT operations and the service delivery risk are associated with all aspects of the performance of the IT system and services, which can bring destruction or reduction of the value of the company. This is existing risk in the live environment. It could also include residual risk already accepted by the enterprise. Most organizations have remedial programs in place to handle this layer associated with the operational stability, availability, protection, and recoverability of IT services, which can bring destruction or reduction of value to the enterprise. At last, that is discussing about the cyber information and security risk. In this, the cyber security risk is the probability of exposure or loss resulting from the cyber attack or data breach on your organizations. A better, more encompassing definition is the potential loss or harm related to the technical infrastructure, use of technology, or reputation of an organization. Moving further ahead, as we have discussed all the IT related risk initiative and other major categories of the risk, let's moving further ahead and let's go through some question answer series. Friends, it's a review question series 6. Please do comment with the correct answer, and definitely we'll be helping you out in order to pass your examination. Question number 1. What is the example of an environmental risk? First, changes in the customer preferences, pollution or degradation of protected area, foreign currency rate, and at last, damage to the assets for which the organization carry insurance. Next question. What type of the risk is employee error? First, strategic, market, credit, operational. Moving further ahead in the question answer series, the third question, what type of risk is projects implemented to not create the expected value? First, strategic, second, environmental, third, IT benefit and value creation, and at last is IT program and the project execution. Next question, What is an example of strategic risk? Pollution or degradation of protected areas, changes in the customer preferences, callable loans, project implemented do not create the expected value. Moving further ahead in the question answer series. What is an example of credit risk? Employee error, damage to asset for which the organization carry insurance, non-compliance, interest rate. And at last question, what is an example of IT benefit / value creation risk? Project implemented do not create the expected value. Next option, service provided do not meet the service level agreement. Next option, changes in the senior management. And at last, foreign currency rates. Friends, please do comment with the correct answer. Moving further ahead, coming on to the risk management life cycle. Friends, we all know that the risk is an influencing factor and must be assessed at all levels of the organization, the strategic level, the business unit level, and the information system level. Properly managed risk program addresses the impact of the risk at all levels and describe how the risk at one level can affect the other level. We'll discuss with this cycle. In this, gentlemen, IT risk management is the implementation of the risk strategy, right? That reflect the culture, risk appetite, and the risk tolerance of the senior management. Consider the resource, maturity, technology, and budget, and addresses the business's requirement resulting from regulatory, legal, and contractual compliance. An effective IT risk management strategy is critical to an organization's ability to effectively and efficiently execute its overall business strategy. Right? In this, the cycle, we can see that is the first will be the IT risk identification, IT risk assessment, risk response and mitigation, and last, risk and control monitoring and reporting. Friends, we can easy way to remember these steps in the risk management life cycle is to use the acronym like IAMM. The first I signifies the identity, second to assess, third to mitigate, and fourth to monitor. So let's discuss one by one. The first, that is IT risk identification. We have to identify the risk, right? Like risk profiling help to identify the changes to internal and external risk environment at an enterprise and the client level and support the identification of the emerging risk. This is the first step when embarking on a change program of activity, but risk should be identified throughout a project life cycle. Moving further ahead, IT risk assessment, that is to assess the risk. Once the risk has been identified, they are evaluated in terms of their likelihood and the impact or consequences. This prioritizes the risk that we really need to focus on and those that need to be highlighted within the risk register. Next, further ahead, cycle, the third step is the risk response and mitigation. In this, we have to mitigate the risk. The materiality assessment of the risk help to determine the strength of the control required to bring the risk to within the business appetite threshold and inform key control areas that require the greater oversight / assurance to ensure that they operate effectively. Once the risk have control in the place, it is likely there will be actions required to ensure the likelihood and impact of the risk is minimized. It is important that these actions have named owner in the businesses and dates to ensure their progresses. And at last, the last is the risk and the control monitoring and reporting. In this, we have to monitor the risk. Risk should be managed on an ongoing basis to reflect changes in the businesses and the control environment, right? In this, this should include the monitoring of the key indicators that provide immediate management information, right, on the performance of the risk and control. And this should be done throughout the project life cycle. Friends, in the risk identification is the first step in the risk management, IT risk management, first step, right? IT risk management is a cyclic process. As we have discussed earlier, the first step in the IT risk management process is to identify the IT risk, which include the determining the risk context and the framework, the organization risk appetite and the tolerance, and the risk identification and documentation process, right? Risk identification should result in listing and documentation of threat to the organization assets. The effectiveness of the existing control, personnel, process, and the technology that may be vulnerable or have a perceived vulnerability, and the potential damage that will occur if the threat materializes, which serve as input to the next phase of the process, IT risk assessment, etc. Friends, a risk assessment requires the analyzing and evaluating threat, then assessing and prioritizing the risk in the context of organization's defined risk appetite and criteria for deviations where risk tolerance would be increased. In this way, management obtain the information it needs for the third phase of the cycle, in which the cost-effective way to address the identified and assessed risks are sought and implemented. And similarly, the final phase, that the risk and control monitoring and reporting, in which the control management effort and the current risk status are monitored and results are reported back to the management. The process repeats the risk management changes which may be due to the internal or external factor. Right? Moving further ahead, for the key concept of the risk. In this, the all party must have the same level of understanding of the risk. For risk to be talked about in a company, it must be done in a meaningful way, right? Everyone involved must have the same understanding of the risk. This ensures that the all stakeholders should speak the same language when talk about the risk, right? So this ensures that when speaking about the risk, everyone is speaking the same language, right? In this, the taxonomy and ontology of the risk must be formally defined, okay, approved or accepted, established and communicated to all parties to ensure there is no misunderstanding when discussing the risk, right? The basic essence of the risk is that it deals with the likelihood of a particular event occurring, like probability, and what it would mean to organize if that event occurred. In an early attempt to define the risk, the likelihood of something happening was found to be a combination of two things, right? First, whether something is attempted, that is threat, and second, whether the target of the attempt is susceptible to attempt, vulnerability. A risk thinking matured risk practitioner began to distinguish between the description of consequences and the extent to which those consequences after the organization's value creation activities. Now it is now common to distinguish between different type of threat and assess them based on the organization asset they may target, but also based on the individual threat actor that may seek to exploit perceived weakness or discover vulnerabilities related to the asset. Right? This makes it possible to talk about the specific threat scenario in the context. So friends, in this what happens? It is now common to distinguish between, as we have discussed, now from the perspective of how these assets are used in the enterprise, it is possible to quantify the impact, right? like productivity, response cost, legal aspects, which include the fine, penalties, penalty orders, competitive advantage, reputation damage, stroke brand damage, impaired growth, health, safety, and environmental concern. Right? So it happens like it is easier for the manager to put a monetary value on the total losses that they are willing to take. Right? Or we can say a risk appetite. Then it is defined what consequences are or are not acceptable in a dozen or a more different business areas. Knowing the potential losses associated with the risk provides a basis for deciding how to respond to a risk beyond what is acceptable, since it makes no sense to spend more to respond to a risk than the cost of the risk itself. Right? Just imagine one thing. Like we'll discuss with the example, right? So imagine a house in a dry forested area, right? A forest fire is a threat regardless of the building material used to construct the house. The probability of wildfire starting in the forested area in the summer is greater than in winter, as we all know, right? So this is also different from the probability of house will burn down. In the second case, we consider the building material. The wooden house is more susceptible to fire, while a brick house is not, right? So for the same threat, like fire outbreak, the probability of impact varies depending on the susceptibility. And next, we can going further ahead, we can say that destruction of the house is a possible consequences, right? If the house is occupied, this means the temporary homeless for the occupant with the immediate cost for temporary shelter and replacement wardrobe. Right? Under these circumstances, it is reasonable to take adequate precautions to address the impact, such as insuring the house against the fire, installing a fire suppression system, and so on. Because the cost of the fire department would exceed the cost of impact, if, however, the house was unoccupied and slated for demolition, the impact would have no negative effect and no precaution would be required. Right? So as we have understood about the key concept of the risk and everything, next moving further ahead, importance and the value of IT management risk. Right? Friends, IT risk management is important for the organization because the program provides the benefit, right? Which type of benefits? Let's discuss one by one. First, better oversight and understanding of organization assets. In this, the better visibility and understanding of the organization asset. First, in this, what we have to do the procedure, right? The first compile the list of all the business critical assets you will investigate for potential vulnerabilities. Examine all the hardwares, software, and information flows in an organization is not practically feasible. Therefore, you should prioritize and classify assets based on a predefined standards like legal stature and business importance. Furthermore, you should incorporate these classifications standard in your information risk management policy to save the valuable time during the assessment. Moving further ahead, identification of threat and vulnerabilities and consequences on the proactive basis, right? In this, what happens, proactive identification of threat and vulnerabilities and consequences. In this, that determine the threat and vulnerabilities capable of compromising your information assets, availability, integrity, and confidentiality. What happens, common IT related hazard include the malicious internal actor and natural disaster. Simultaneously, investigate the vulnerabilities like old equipment, incorrect configurations, and unpatched system in your organization, as attacker can infiltrate a network by exploiting these vulnerabilities. Right? Further ahead, prioritization of risk response effort that aligned with the organization goal and priorities. In this, let's get it more clear. In this, what happens, prioritization of risk response action that are aligned with the organization goals and the priorities. At this stage, the compare, prioritize, and the rank risk by determining their possibility of occurrence and their subsequent impact on an information system. classify risk such as high, medium or low based on the scores assigned to them. Additionally, employ the automated cybersecurity risk assessment and the management tool for accurate risk analysis and identification of the security event requiring immediate attention. Right? Next, reduce or the minimize loss. What is the reduce and minimize losses? After prioritizing the risk, friends, it's a step-by-step process, right? After minimizing the risk, after prioritizing the risk, you can address them using the following, few methods, right? First, we can use the risk avoidance, right? What is risk avoidance? Risk avoidance is the most straightforward approach and require the organization to evade activities potentially posing legal, financial, reputational and operational risk. For example, you can avoid the risk of regulatory penalties by adhering all the data security regulation in your region, right? We can use risk modification. What is risk modification? In the risk modification, which allow the organization to lessen the adverse impact of unavoidable risk by establishing robust physical, technical and operational control, right? We can use the risk transfer. What is risk transfer? Risk transfer enables the organization to mitigate and consequences of the risk by transferring or sharing it with third party. Right? Cloud vendors, for example, reduce the business risk of the business interruption for their client by providing off-site data backups. And at last, we can minimize the losses by using risk acceptance, right? Say eradicating or transferring the every risk is practically impossible. So as an organization, we must accept the specific threat as part of its overall security risk management process. For example, organization network have inherent risk such as unexpected outages, but businesses still rely on them for communication or information exchange. In this, the next will be the more holistic basis for and compliance to the legal and regulatory compliance. In this, compliance, what is the compliance is a synonym, right, with a brand reputation, and therefore a strong compliance function is critical to organization success. Like, take a recent example that the pandemic which happened, that the COVID-19 has tossed a new curveball our way, making it imperative for organization to align to the new way of doing business. So now more than ever before, compliance management professionals need to stay on the top of the complex web of the regulatory obligations that govern their businesses and implement the measures, processes and policies in an ethical and legal manner. They must have visibility across the organization to effectively manage and monitor both regulatory and the corporate compliance. Right? In the next, increased likelihood of project success. Friends, in this, what happens? Effective risk management strategy allow you to identify your project strength, weaknesses, opportunities and threat. By planning for unexpected event, you can be ready to respond if they arise. To ensure a project success, define how we'll handle the potential risk so you can identify, mitigate and avoid problems when you need to do. Right? Next is the improved performance. What is improved performance? In this, the employee can reduce the likelihood and severity of potential project risk by identifying them early. If something goes wrong, there will already be an action plan in place to handle it. This helps the employee prepare for the unexpected and maximize the project outcomes. And at last is the greater stakeholder confidence. What is the greater stakeholder confidence? Who are the stakeholders? Let's understand that thing. As per the International Risk Governance Center, define stakeholders in the realm of the risk governance as a socially organized group that are or will be affected by the outcome of the event or the risk or the activity from which the risk originates, and by the risk management options taken to counter the risk. Okay, let's moving further ahead. In addition to the, in addition of the importance and the value of IT risk management, right? Now the first will be the creation of the risk aware culture with the less reliance on the specialist. In this, what happens? A company culture that requires the risk aware behavior, that value the risk aware behavior, it protects the customers, the brand, and the bottom line. When all the stakeholders from the CEO and the board down to the newest interns are aware of the risk inherent in every decisions, potential issues can be raised, discussed, and addressed in advance. Unexpected issues are less likely to occur, and when they do occur, the impact tend to be less severe. Right? In this, what happens? A greater risk culture is not something that can be built in a single all staff email or all hand meetings. It takes time to educate the people about the risk, right? Spark dialogues around the possible actions and instill a belief that everyone has the power to make a difference. Next, better incident business continuity, management, and overall organization resiliency. There are 3 terms involved in it. Let's understand one by one. First, incident management. Incidents have a huge impact on the organization, right? In terms of cost, productivity, and reputation. However, good incident management will reduce the impact when they do happen. Being able to detect and quickly respond to the incident will help to prevent the further damage, reducing the financial and operational impact. Right? Now, next word, business continuity. What is business continuity? As defined by the International Organization for Standardization, business continuity is an organization's ability to continue to deliver its product and services at acceptable level following the business disruption. In simple terms, we can say that the business continuity management involves all the processes and the procedures associated with ensuring that the critical operations are maintained to meet appropriate standards. For example, imagine a natural disaster strike an office building and destroying an organization network infrastructure. Without proper business continuity planning, the company data and the corporate resource would be lost, thus throwing the critical operations into the disarray. Right? And last, organization resiliency. What is organization resiliency? Business resiliency is a framework, right, integrated into a company culture, allowing a business to survive and even prosper in the face of challenges or crisis. A resilient business is ready to adapt, flex, and pivot to the changes and the pressures. Hope you have understood this point. Moving further ahead, improve control selection and implementation. Friends, as the name suggests, it is the improved control selection and implementation. However, coming to the next, it is monitoring and reporting that is meaningful to the organization. Right? In this, what happens? Consistent business reporting and monitoring is necessary for many companies, as the board may demand to view weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annual reports to get a good sense of how the business is performing. Right? In this, the business monitoring is an essential component, right, of how a company can perform its daily activity effectively. It's also common for the business stakeholders to require update on the company's performance and the progresses, and business monitoring technique can help the professional provide the accurate information. Next, improve decision making as a result of expanded access to the accurate and timely information. Self-explanatory, and increased ability to meet the business objective and create the value. And at last, transparency of operation and transaction processing for added value to the enterprise image. Friends, as we have discussed a chunk of topic, let's moving further ahead and clear our with the question answer series. Review question series 7. Okay, gentlemen, first, what is the first step of the IT risk management process? Risk identification, risk assessment, implementing the risk management strategies, reporting risk and control monitoring. Next question, what is the goal of an IT risk management program? To reduce the cost, to increase profit, to reflect an organization culture, risk appetite and risk tolerance, to comply with the regulatory, legal and contractual obligations. Next series. What is the last step of the IT risk management process? We have discussed with the help of the acronym also. First, let's go ahead with the options. Friends, please do comment with the correct answer. Risk identification, risk assessment, implementing the risk management strategies, reporting risk and control monitoring. Next question, what is the purpose of IT risk management? To assess the impact of the risk at all levels, to improve the efficiency of the business strategy, to reflect the risk appetite of the senior management, and at last to ensure the regulatory and the legal compliance. Coming further with the next question, what is the final phase of the IT risk management cycle? Risk identification, risk assessment, risk reduction, risk monitoring and reporting. Friends, I know it's a repeat of the question, but however, it is easier for you to assimilate what we have learned. The more you will see the video, the more you will be able to understand it. Moving further ahead, let's discuss about some business related IT risk. What is the business IT related risk? First, coming to that access risk. What is access risk? Let's give some overview before going further ahead. You know what happens in this, the identify the risk, right? Require a combination of knowledge, experience, imagination and analysis. The risk practitioner is most likely to identify a risk when it takes the form of something or he or she can already imagine, right? For these reasons, it is beneficial for the risk practitioner to know the type of the risk facing the organization. The thing which we'll discuss is not exhaustive, right? But is as per the CRM. The risk practitioner should commit to continue educating a professional philosophy and should be alert to the concern of the business process owners who may see the potential problem in their particular areas of expertise that are not immediately apparent to the journalist. However, in this, the effective risk management relies on the ongoing dialogue and is a collaborative process between the risk practitioner and the appropriate business process owners and the stakeholders. Friends, it is also the risk should be aware that the IT risk is only one part of the overall risk universe of the business project, which also include the risk connected with the credit, legal, law based or labor based plus other factors. The need to think about the full spectrum of the business of the project risk can overload or surround with too much of something. The risk like professional or the skilled personnel should always recognize that what is very important to the IT may or may not be the most critical or serious thought or something to think about to the other organization in the big picture of overall risk. Taking this an introduction, let's go ahead and discuss the access risk. The first in the line is the access risk. What is the risk? In this, what happens? The risk that the information may be divulged or available to the recipient without authorized access by the information owner, reflecting a loss and confidentiality and integrity. Right? In this, what happens? Let's make it more clear. In this, the risk that the information may be told people about or made available to the receiver without approved access, right, by the information owner, reflecting a loss of keeping the private information private and honest and a good human quality, wholeness or completedness. In this, friends, an access risk is one or more action or permission that, when available to a single user for a single role, profile, or HR objective, create the potential for fraud or unintentional error. Right? So, moving further ahead, let's discuss about the availability risk. It defines that the risk that services may be lost or friends, starting with the moving further ahead, that is regarding the availability risk, right? In this, the risk that the service may be lost, right, or data or not easy to get to or use understand when needed. The availability risk assessment methodology provide a quantitative approach for conducting availability risk assessment of the IT services. This methodology help in engaging with the management to derive an acceptable level of services and give prescriptive input for achieving the desired service level. Moving further ahead, let's discuss about the cyber and information risk. In this, the cyber and information risk, as it suggests that the failure to ensure the proper safeguarding of privacy, confidentiality, and integrity and availability of information regardless of the medium. In this, to amplify, it is the failure to secure or make sure of the proper safeguarding of privacy, keeping the private information private, or honest and a good human quality, wholeness or completeness, and availability of information without any concern about having nothing to do with the medium. Next, emerging technology risk. In emerging technology risk, threat associated with the use and implementation of the new technology which have not yet been fully adopted, evaluated, or tested for the operational resiliency, suitability, sustainability, or security. In this, the new or unforeseen risk that we haven't yet contemplated. This is the risk that should be on our radar but is not, and is potential for harm or loss is not fully known. A risk that is evolving in areas and the ways where the body of available knowledge is weak. Threat connected with the use and putting into the use of new technology which have not been fully adopted. Figure out the worth, amount, or quality of, or tested for operational toughness, suitability, the ability to keep something around or keep something going, or security. Next, infrastructure risk. As the name says, the risk that the IT infrastructure and the system may be unable to effectively support the current and the future need of the businesses in an efficient, cost-effective, and well-controlled fashion. Includes the hardware, network, software, people, and the processes. In this, the risk that the IT, basic equipments needed for a business or a society to operate, and system may be unable to effectively support the current and the future need of the businesses in a producing a lot with a very little waste, producing a lot for a given amount of money, and in a well-controlled fashion. Includes hardware, network, software, people, and the processes. Example, company network goes down, data center loses the power. Next in the line is the integrity risk. What is integrity risk? Integrity risk is the risk that data may be unreliable due to incompleteness or inaccuracy. In this, the likelihood and the information may be unreliable because of incompleteness or inaccuracy. Integrity risks are those that could facilitate integrity breaches. Some risks are common, like conflict of interest, while others are specific to an authority because of its function and activities. Identify risk, make up an authority risk profile. Next in the line is the investment or expense risk. The risk that the IT investment failed to provide value commensurate with its cost or is otherwise excessive or wasteful including the overall IT investment portfolio. In this, the likelihood and the IT investment fail to supply worth in fulfillment of its price or is or inordinate or wasteful comprising of a general IT investment portfolio. Investment risk can be defined as the probability or likelihood of occurrence of the losses relative to the expected return or any particular investment. Next, program and the project risk. In this, it defined as the risk of IT projects failing to meet objective through lack of accountability and commitment. The danger of IT plan failing short to encounter aims over the lack of accountability and commitment, right? And this the program risk management and the project risk management are methods by which the total risk of the program or project is identified, quantified, and managed. Next in the line is the relevance risk. The relevance risk as defined that the risk that the right information may not get the right recipient at the right time to allow the right action to be taken or the right decision to be made. In this, the likelihood and the right facts may not get the right recipient at the right duration to approve the right action to be taken or the right decision to be made. However, relevance risk is comprised of unknown unknowns, right? We can say that occurs as a result of everyday life. Next, coming to the schedule risk. What is schedule risk? The risk of IT projects taking longer than expected. In this, the danger of IT plan taking longer than expected. Schedule risk analysis is a process to determine the achievability of a schedule and its chance of meeting the project's defined goal. Overall, we can say it is a quantitative analysis and based on mathematical calculation, enabling the project to monitor potential schedule delay through the life of the project. Next in the line is the talent risk. What is the talent risk? Talent risk is somewhat the failure to source and inability to retain the qualified talent needed to achieve the enterprise strategy. The defeat to resource and the inability to keep the capable aptitude, right, required to accomplish the enterprise approach. In this, the process of assessing your current technical and professional capacity compared to the expected, like aligning your organization around which the risks are a priority and then mitigating actions to level workload or transfer knowledge and skills to reduce the highest risk. Next, third party risk. In this, the threat introduced by the external entity, right, like vendor, provider, regulatory body, which impact the enterprises. In this, what happens? Threat introduced by the outsider, right, entity like vendor, provider, restrictive body that affect the enterprises. Transferring the risk to the third party also include the outsourcing certain functions and services to the third party. So that is to a standard risk treatment method. The organization, for example, can reduce the risk of accounting and budget error with a small untrained staff by outsourcing its accounting function to a third-party accounting firm. Moving ahead with the question answer series. First question. What type of the risk is associated with the inability to source and retain the right talent? First, access risk, availability risk, talent risk, third party risk. Question 2. What type of risk is associated with the failure to secure the proper safeguarding of privacy? Access risk, availability risk, cyber and information risk, infrastructure risk. Next question. What type of risk is associated with the investment failing to provide the value in relation to its cost? Emerging technology risk, integrity risk, investment or expense risk, relevance risk. Next question. What type of the risk is the likelihood that the right fact may not get the right recipient at the right duration to approve the right action? Access risk, availability risk, relevance risk, and schedule risk. Now moving further ahead, let's discuss about the senior management support. What is the senior management support? Friends, the senior management support is vitally important through the risk management process. The success of the risk management often depend upon the support of senior management, right? So the support can be visible and active and help to ensure that all the relevant stakeholders are aware of the risk involved and are willing to work together to manage them successfully. Executives should be willing to intervene when necessary to communicate with the importance of the risk identification effort and the need for everyone to contribute their part of their program success. Moving further ahead, let's discuss about the alignment with the business goal and objective. In this, the effective risk management depend upon the understanding the enterprise goal and objective. Right? The risk practitioner must be careful not to focus solely on the risk and the perspective of the one department or one processes. The risk practitioner should consider how a risk might affect other department, business partners, or the overall business goals. It can easy for the IT practitioner to calculate the risk based on the IT impact and forget to include the business process owners who those IT systems support. The risk management program serves the enterprises, so the risk practitioner must remember to look beyond his or her own department. The risk practitioner should maintain a regular communication with the senior management to understand the goal and the objective of the enterprise. Validating these understandings through consultation with the senior management help ensure that the risk mitigation strategies are aligned with the organization's overall vision and strategy. Risk management considers both the potential benefit and the risk associated with the new ventures. Often, these risks come in the form of financial losses, reputational damage, changes in the work condition, and the need to adapt to the new regulatory environment. By understanding what executives are anticipating, risk practitioner can better understand the various factors that influence the risk within an enterprise and make smart decisions accordingly. The most important role of the risk management is to ensure that the strategy and the objective of the enterprise are aligned with the risk that it faces. This ensures that the executive will take action and that may not be in the best interest of the company but offer promise for the value creation. Risk management is critically dependent on history, right? The past must be taken into account in the context of risk management effort. In this, a restricted emphasis on the past, however, might make the organization develop a bad habit of only correcting the problems after they have already happened, leaving it vulnerable to a new threat and future problems. Alternatively, businesses that had a success in the past could have overconfidence, which could be risky and drive it to ignore significant issues that need to be carefully addressed and mitigated. Right? So let's discuss about the new topic, that is RACI model. What is RACI? It's a short form of a responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So let's discuss this thing, and it's an important topic. First will be the responsible, in which the stakeholders' role defined as a responsible is described, right? However, this person is tasked with getting the job done. Second, this is the role of the person performing the actual work effort to meet the stated objective. Let's make it more clear. These people, often the risk, that is the professional or the skilled person, are responsible for carrying out the risk management effort, right? Management can be responsible if the risk include the decision made by the business project. However, some examples we can take: the person who are responsible in a company, such as the project managers, business analysts, developers, graphic designers, copywriters. Coming to the next, that is accountable. What is accountable? Accountable, in this the stakeholder roles defined as accountable is described. In this the person is accountable, right? Liable or answerable for the completion of the task. He or she is responsible for oversight and management of the person responsible for performing the work effort. He or she may also play a role in the project and bear the responsibility for project success or the failure. And in order to be effective, accountability should be with a sole role or a person. These people, often the senior management, are responsible for securing, making sure that the risk management effort are properly staffed, budgeted, and are being carried out as planned. The one ultimately answerable for the correct and thorough completion of the deliverable or task, the one who ensures the prerequisite of the task are met and who delegate the work to those responsible. In other words, we can say that an accountable must sign off the work that responsible provides. There must be only one accountable specified for each task or deliverables. In this, we can take an example in a business. We can say that some examples such as accountable parties, right? They are such as product owners, signature authorities, business owners, sponsors, or we can say key stakeholders. Moving further ahead, consulted. What is consulted? As the consulted stakeholder role defined as consulted, these are the people consulted as a part of the project. They provide the input data, advices, feedback, or approval. Consulted person may be from other department and from all layers of the organization, from external source or from the regulators. However, informed, so let's discuss it. Consulted, these people, often the business process owners or executive leadership, provide needed demand support and help in securing, making sure of that risk management effort that can be carried without, right? Those whose opinions are sought, typically subject matter expert, and with whom there is a two-way communication. In this, we can take an example such as legal expert, information security and cyber security expert, and compliance consultant. And last, that is informed. In informed, the person who are informed of the status, achievement, and or delivery of the task. These person may be interested, but who are often not directly responsible for the work effort. These people, often the senior management or the board of directors, are based on knowledge and learning related to looking at or thinking about the progress of the risk management effort as appropriate. Those who are kept up to date on the progress, often only on completion of the task or deliverables, and with whom there is just one-way communication. Some examples of the informed are that is project committee members, external stakeholders, and business owners. So let's discuss about the RACI model, right? So I'll go deliberate in this because we'll discussing in each and everything in a clear way, right? So including the RACI model, sometimes called the RACI model, right? Or RACI diagram. Simply just RACI is created by the project manager at the start of the project as a key part of establishing the initial human resource planning of the project, right? RACI chart are a great asset to the team dealing with any type of project, from very simple project to the extremely complex one, right? In this, the task that is collecting the risk data in the senior management, they are required to be informed. Steering committee chair, they are accountable. Department managers, they are consulted, and the risk practitioners are responsible. Similarly, next, delivering the risk report, senior management is informed, steering committee is accountable, department managers are also informed, risk practitioners are responsible. Prioritizing the risk response. In this, the senior management is accountable, steering committee is informed, department managers are responsible, and risk practitioners are consulted. At last, for monitoring the risk, senior management are informed, steering committee is accountable, department managers are responsible, and risk practitioners are consulted. What happens? The responsible people given the job, getting the job done, right? The actual work effort to meet the stated goals. And the people who are accountable, these are the single person responsible for completion of the job, right? Who supervises and manages the person responsible for in the work effort, who may also play a role in the project, right? Responsibility uh, or for behavior of a particular job should be assigned to clearly stated particular person in order to be effective. And those who are consulted, they provide the input data, opinion about what could or should be done about the situation, reaction or responses to something, helpful return information, approval. Consulted person may be from the other department and from all layer of the business process, from external sources or from the devices that control the things, group of the people that ensure the rules are followed. And the people who are informed, people who are based on the knowledge and the learning of the status, action of accomplishing or completing the something challenging and or things that can be manufactured and provided of the job, but who are often not directly responsible for the work effort. In this, what happens? Risk management can be implemented across the board of an organization with a single and a centralized formal risk management team, or it can be done independently for each level of organization or in relation to the certain task. Many businesses might have a chief risk officer in the place, and those that they do not allow chief risk officer answer to the CEO or the board of directors. Friends, risk management may be too complex responsibility for any department or team in large businesses. This is particularly true if the company support a large range of goods or services or is geographically spread. It may be necessary to organize the risk management effort by department, goods, services, or geographical areas. In most circumstances, the enterprise of the business continuity management team and the organization of the risk management group should adhere to the same model. Having discussed these all things, let's move on to the question answer series. Who typically report to the chief executive officer or the board of directors regarding the risk management? Chief risk officer, department head, project manager, risk practitioner. Second, what is typically done to ensure a standard approach to measuring and mitigating the risk? First, develop an understanding of the risk with the management team. Establish a decentralized model. Assign a singular centralized team. Arrange a risk management by department. Next, what is the key influencing factor in managing the risk for a small company? Geographical dispersion, variety of product and the services, cultural differences between the department, risk management team size. Next, what is the main purpose of functional level integration in the risk management? To create the counterintuitive perspective, to develop an understanding of the risk, to measure and mitigate the risk, and to facilitate the implementation. Next question, what type of the risk is the danger of IT plans falling short to encounter aim over lack of the accountability and commitment? Integrity risk, program/project risk, talent risk, third party risk. What type of the risk is the likelihood that information may be unreliable because of incompleteness or inaccuracy? Access risk, availability risk, integrity risk, or third party risk. Next, Which of the following is an example of infrastructure risk? The risk that information may be told to the people about without approved access of the information owner. The risk that the IT system may be unable to effectively support the current and the future need of the businesses. The likelihood that the right fact may not get to the right recipient at the right duration. And at last, the defeat to source and the inability to keep the capable aptitude required to accomplish the enterprise approach. Please do comment with the correct answer. This is the end of the part 3, domain 1. Gentlemen, thanks for the watching. Please like and share in your learning groups. Thank you.